David Reeves, 42 years old. For 15 years, he had studied the behavioral patterns of Africa's most dangerous predators across the Serengeti. He had been charged by buffalo, circled by wild dogs, and once spent 3 days trapped in a Land Rover while a pride of lions slept on the hood. Nothing surprised him anymore. But today was different. It was 6:47 in the morning. The temperature was already climbing past 29 degrees Celsius, and the air smelled of dry grass and dust. David sat inside his old research cabin, organizing field notes from the previous week. Then he heard it. A sound that made no sense. A low, guttural whimper coming from just outside the front door. In the Serengeti, wild animals almost never approach human structures. The scent of wood smoke, metal, and human sweat keeps them away. David's hand instinctively reached for the pepper spray on his belt. He moved to the window and looked outside. What he saw stopped his heart. A massive lioness stood in the front yard, a lion cub hanging limp from her jaws. She walked slowly, almost ceremonially, toward the cabin steps. Then she placed the cub down on the wooden boards with surgical gentleness. She backed away 3 meters, sat down, and stared directly at David through the glass. David's mind raced through 15 years of behavioral data. The lioness's posture was low. Her ears pointed forward. Her tail lay flat against the ground. Every signal in that body language said the same thing. She was not hunting. She was begging. David opened the door slowly. The hinges screamed. The lioness flinched but did not run. She shifted back another meter, giving him space. David knelt beside the cub. The animal weighed no more than 12 kilograms, maybe 4 months old. On its right hind leg, he could see a deep puncture wound, swollen to nearly twice its normal size. The skin around the bite was hot to the touch, dark red shading into purple. Infection was spreading fast. Without treatment, this cub had hours, not days. David lifted the cub carefully. The lioness tensed, her muscles coiling, but she made no move. He carried the cub inside and placed it on the wooden table. The lioness followed, stepping through the doorway like a ghost, and sat beside the table, watching every move. David worked fast. Antiseptic gauze on the wound. The cub groaned, a thin, broken sound. Pressure bandage around the leg. A syringe of broad-spectrum antibiotic injected into the scruff. The cub's breathing was shallow, 40 breaths per minute, too fast. Its gums were pale. Dehydration was already advanced. David started a subcutaneous fluid line, hanging the bag from a nail on the wall. He had done everything he could, but the wound was deeper than it looked, and he could not tell how far the infection had already spread. David looked at the lioness. Her amber eyes held something he had never seen in 15 years of studying these animals: desperation and trust. Why would a lioness bring her cub to a human? What had happened out there? 2 hours earlier, the cub had been hunting with its parents in the tall grass near the eastern ridge. The young lion was chasing a hyena pup, zigzagging through the bushes, full of reckless courage. The hyena pup stopped suddenly beside a thorn thicket and let out a sharp, high-pitched cry. It was a signal. From the bushes, adult hyenas emerged. First 3, then 5, then a dozen. It was an ambush. The baby hyena had been bait, and the cub had walked straight into the trap. The hyenas attacked without hesitation. Teeth and claws tore into the cub's hind leg. The cub screamed. The sound echoed across the plain. Then the ground shook. The father lion exploded from the grass, 190 kilograms of muscle and fury, his roar splitting the air. Behind him, the mother lioness sprinted, already calculating how to reach her cub. The father lion crashed into the hyena pack like a battering ram, scattering three with a single swipe of his paw. But there were too many. The father assessed the situation in a fraction of a second. He could not fight 24 hyenas while protecting both the cub and the mother. He turned his head and locked eyes with the lioness. In that look was everything. Go. Take him. Run. I will hold them. The lioness grabbed the cub and ran. The hyena leader barked, and half the pack peeled off to chase her. The father roared again, trying to follow, but another wave of hyenas cut him off. He watched his family disappear over the ridge. Then the full assault began, and his body became a canvas of wounds. But he fought. He fought until he could not see them anymore. And then he kept fighting. The lioness ran until she found the only thing she believed could save her son. A human. Back in the present, David was cleaning his hands when a sound crawled through the walls. A cackling, shrieking chorus that made every hair on his body stand up. Hyenas. He moved to the window. 100 meters out, shapes were emerging from behind rocks, from inside bushes, materializing like a nightmare assembling itself. 10 hyenas. Then 15. Then more. David grabbed the radio. His voice was steady, but his hands were not. The rescue station responded. Due to heavy rains 2 days ago, the access road was destroyed. The team would need at least 3 hours by helicopter, and the only available chopper was refueling 200 kilometers away. 3 hours. David looked at the hyenas. They had closed to 80 meters and were spreading into a crescent formation, testing the perimeter of the cabin. This 20-year-old cabin, with its cracked wooden walls and rusted hinges, was all that stood between 2 lions and a pack of killers. David moved fast. He tore through his research shelves. 15 years of fieldwork had filled this cabin with tools no ordinary person would have. He found 6 emergency flares. A portable speaker system he used to play animal calls during behavioral studies. And on his laptop's hard drive, recordings of territorial male lion roars captured from 3 different dominant males over the past decade. A plan formed. The hyenas reached the cabin. Claws scraped against wood. Noses pushed into cracks. One hyena found a gap at the base of the back wall and began tearing at the rotted boards. Wood splintered. The lioness lunged and swiped through the gap, catching the hyena across the muzzle. Blood sprayed. The hyena screamed and retreated. But they kept coming. The leader reorganized the pack. They attacked from all 4 sides simultaneously. The old wood groaned and cracked. David connected the speakers. He placed 2 outside the front windows and 2 at the rear, threading the cables through gaps in the shutters. He hit play at maximum volume. 3 different male lion roars erupted across the savannah. Deep, ground-shaking territorial declarations of war. The sound bounced off the rocks and the termite mounds and came back from every direction. The hyenas froze, ears up, eyes wide. David lit 2 flares and threw them through opposite windows. Red light exploded into the gray morning, billowing chemical smoke that stank of sulfur and burning metal. He grabbed a broom, hung his jacket over it, and waved the silhouette past the side window. A shadow that moved like a charging lion. The hyenas saw fire on 2 sides. They heard 3 male lions roaring from every direction. They saw a dark shape moving fast along the flank. Panic rippled through the pack. David lit a 3rd flare and hurled it directly into the center of the pack outside. It landed hissing and spitting red sparks. The formation shattered. Hyenas scattered in every direction, howling. But it was not enough. 5 hyenas, the largest and most desperate, did not run. Their eyes were glassed over with hunger, beyond fear, beyond reason. They pushed through the broken back wall and entered the cabin. David grabbed a broken table leg. The lioness rose beside him, shoulder to shoulder, blood still wet on her flank. For the first time in his life, David Reeves stood side by side with a wild lioness, facing the same enemy. The first hyena lunged at David. He swung the club and connected with its jaw. Bone cracked. The second hyena bit into his left calf. Pain like fire shot up his leg. He brought the club down on its skull and it released. The lioness killed one with a single bite to the throat, then threw another against the wall so hard the impact broke its spine. The last hyena circled, watching, waiting for an opening. David and the lioness were both bleeding now. His left leg was torn. Her right shoulder was gashed deep, muscle visible beneath the skin. It was then that the earth shook. A roar unlike anything the speakers had produced tore through the dawn. Real, alive, furious. Through the shattered back wall, a massive male lion appeared. His mane was matted with dried blood. His left foreleg dragged. Wounds covered every inch of his body. But his eyes burned with something that no injury could extinguish. The father had survived. He crossed the cabin in 2 strides, seized the last hyena by the neck, and shook once. The hyena went limp. Silence filled the world. The father lion stood swaying, barely upright. He looked at the lioness. He looked at the cub on the table, still breathing, still alive. Then he looked at David. For 3 full seconds, the lion stared into the human's eyes. There was no aggression, no fear, something else entirely. The father lion's legs buckled. He collapsed beside his family. The lioness pressed her body against his. She licked his wounds. The cub, somehow, opened its eyes and let out a tiny, broken sound. The father lion touched his nose to his son's face. David sat on the floor, bleeding, exhausted, weeping. 40 minutes later, the helicopter arrived. The rescue team found David sitting against the wall, a pride of lions resting around him like he was one of their own. The veterinarian checked the father lion's pulse, weak but steady, pressure bandages, IV fluids, antibiotics for all 3. The cub was critical and needed surgery. David received 15 stitches in his calf and treatment for blood loss. As the helicopter lifted off with the lion family inside, the lioness pressed her face against the window and looked down at David, standing in the wreckage of his cabin. He raised his hand. She held his gaze until the helicopter disappeared into the white sky. 3 months later, the Serengeti Wildlife Authority awarded David Reeves a Courage Citation and provided him with a new research station in the Southern Corridor. New equipment, new funding, a fresh start. On a quiet Tuesday morning, David was sitting in a wooden chair outside his new cabin, coffee in hand, the sun warm on his face. He heard a sound in the distance. Familiar, impossible. 3 silhouettes crested the far hill. The father, walking tall, a new scar across his shoulder, but his stride strong and proud. The mother, lean and powerful, her coat gleaming in the sunlight. And between them, the cub, no longer small, bounding through the grass on 4 healthy legs. They stopped 30 meters from the cabin. All 3 lowered their heads toward David. Slowly, deliberately, a gesture that no textbook had ever described, because no textbook had ever needed to. David stood. Tears ran down his face. He lifted his left pant leg. A jagged scar ran across his calf. The lioness, in the distance, turned slightly, and the morning light caught the scar across her right shoulder. Wounds earned in the same fight, on the same night, side by side. The father lion raised his head, looked at David one final time, and turned. The family walked together into the golden savanna and disappeared over the ridge. David entered his study. He opened a blank notebook and wrote the title of his next paper, Trust that Transcends Species. Every year, thousands of animals in Africa are injured by human waste, traps, and garbage left behind. One lioness trusted a stranger with her son's life, and that trust saved an entire family. If you believe that wildlife deserves better, share this story. If it moved you, subscribe and leave a like so more people can hear it. Because every voice counts, and every share is a step toward a world where no animal has to beg a human for help.